So the origins of Memorial Day actually go back all the way to the Civil War. At that time, it was an opportunity to honor those who gave their lives as a part of the Union Army. And by the time World War I came around, it had expanded to be a time when we would honor all those who had given their lives in service to this country. And so today, on this Memorial Day weekend, I'd like us to take a moment to pay tribute to anyone in the room who is a veteran, to anyone who has served, who has fought for the freedom of this country. Would all veterans please stand so that we can honor you? Thank you for serving. And if there are in the room today any family members of persons who have made their transition in service to this country, we'd like to invite you to stand. I can't imagine what that might be like for you to have lost a loved one in the service. So if you would please stand, all family members of anyone who has given their life in service to this country, please stand. And so we honor you. We honor these gifts that have been given so that we might be here today. Over the years, Memorial Day has expanded still to be a time when we honor our loved ones who have moved on, where we honor their legacy. I spoke to someone after the first service who is going to go by this afternoon 5 different cemeteries and has 27 different family members on whose grave he's going to leave a flower or some other form of decoration. That is the tradition in his family. He's carrying it on because that's how his parents used to spend Memorial Day. So it's a time for us to really pause and reflect upon how it is that we've all been blessed by the people that have left us in physical form but still left their legacy with us. Last week in our creative meeting, some of our staff came together and we were asked to bring an item for our sacred space that would represent someone who was no longer in the physical plane, but who had really blessed us in a powerful way. So we each brought something, and Reverend Bob brought some things of his grandfather, and he told a story about how when he was a little boy, that he and his grandfather had a special code language. And when he'd go to visit his granddad, his grandfather would say, "There are mice in the closet." And what that meant was there were candy bars there for Bob. And isn't that perfect? Because can't you just see what a great grandfather Bob is? Whenever he talks about Dorian, you know, Dorian's the apple of his eye. So clearly that legacy has carried on. I don't know if he tells Dorian there are mice in the closet or not, but I know he's got code language with Dorian. And Brandon, our Director of Youth and Family, whom you got to hear from last week, Brandon brought some items from his grandmother. You see, it was his grandmother that brought him to Unity in the first place. And he used to come to church, in fact, sit right here with her. And so he brought some of the books that she had given to him, as well as this particular album. It's Candlelight at Unity. It was a 25th anniversary celebration at Unity Temple on the plaza. A true historical treasure. And I was thinking about how it is that Brandon is now on his way to becoming a Unity minister, and how his grandmother left her legacy for the world through Brandon. So at this time of year, it's a time for us to honor that. For my own self, I brought a stone that had been given to me by a friend, and the stone said strength on it. And I brought it because it reminded me of my mother who was a very strong woman, and her mother before her. And my mom's commitment was that her daughters, my sister and I, would absolutely be strong and independent and able to stand on her own. And I think about being here as a minister in a field that is largely considered by many to be a male-dominated profession. And yet, with my mother's strength in me, it never occurred to me that I couldn't be a minister. And so it is that we celebrate and honor legacy on Memorial Day. When I lead a memorial service, a celebration of life service, we like to call them in Unity, there's a phrase that I almost always include in one of the prayers, and it's fingerprints on the soul. Our loved ones that move on have left fingerprints on our soul. And I know that some of you are here today and you've had recent losses. Your loved ones have crossed over to a place where you can't see or feel or touch them anymore, even though they're still very much with you. And so it's this notion of fingerprints on the soul that I want us to think about today. How it is that the people in your life, though they leave your physical presence, they have left indelible fingerprints on your soul. You are not the same because of them. Last week I heard a StoryCorps story. How many of you know about StoryCorps? A few of you do. It's a project that makes audio recordings of interviews between people, and then those interviews are saved in a Library of Congress. It's a way of recording our verbal, oral history of this country. And so last week there was a special story shared about how it is that somebody actually gave life to someone else. And I'll just let the story speak for itself.
Hey, it's Friday, which means it's time for StoryCorps, when we record everyday people across the country and hear some of their stories. Rick Bounds is a triathlete, but 6 years ago he was diagnosed with a serious liver disease. His doctors told him that if he did not have an immediate kidney and liver transplant, he would die. But they found a match, and that's when Dorothy Biernack and her husband Marty entered his life.
I woke up my husband. I said, "We got to get up." He had a construction company. I said, "All your guys are going to be waiting for you." And then he stood up and he turned around and looked at me and said, "Baby, something doesn't feel right." He had a stroke. And by the time we got to the hospital, they said there's nothing else they can do for him. So one of the worst things I ever had to do was open up that door with his mother and our children looking at me for hope. And I had to tell them that there was no hope. Within minutes of finding out that he was going to pass away, we decided to donate his kidneys and the liver. So why was it so important for you to meet me as your donor family?
I was struggling with the fact that I was allowed to live and someone passed. And I wanted a picture of the person who had been taken and allowed me to live.
Were you surprised at how young I was when I walked in? Because a lot of times people expect a widow to be a little old lady walking in.
Yes, and it was hard for me because here I was sitting across from you eating dinner with, literally parts of Marty in me, allowing me to be able to do that. And I think what set me at ease was your smile, just like this morning when you got out of the car. You just have a real bright smile, and it just allows people to relax. And then 3 days later, you decided to make the trip to go to the triathlon.
My daughter came with me, and we were waiting for you where?
At the finish line with the picture of
A
Marty.
big picture of Marty.
I remember going up and giving you a hug, and some woman took that shot of you and I hugging. And you don't see our face, but you see Marty's face peering out right at the camera.
That picture means a lot to me, too, because all you can see is the person that brought us together.
I visualize Marty as my angel.
Yeah, I feel like Marty still has a purpose to help you live your life and see your grandchildren, and I couldn't ask anybody nicer to be able to live with my husband helping you.
Thank you.
Rick Bounds and Dorothy Biernack at StoryCorps in Baltimore. You can see their photo from the triathlon finish line at npr.org. StoryCorps interviews are archived at the Library of Congress.
Now, I know that most of us have not literally given an organ to someone else or received one, though many in the room have. But I'm struck by how it is that we leave our legacy in the world. And as I was listening to that story, the words that most stood out for me were when Rick says, "Here I am, sitting here with parts of Marty in me." And I thought about how it is that you and I have parts of other people in us. We have the blessings that others have left us. And similarly, we're giving parts of ourselves to the people that we love. It's how it works in this world. There really is only one of us, you see. There really is only one of us. We think that we're separate because we're in these separate bodies, but that's illusion, because the truth is that very beautiful gift that Dorothy gave to Rick by allowing her husband's organs to live in him. The truth is that's just the way life is, and we are all connected. It's as if we're all one body. And actually, in 1 Corinthians chapter 12, the Apostle Paul uses this metaphor of the body to talk about the church, the community that was forming at that time. But this metaphor of all of us as parts of one body, it works as a metaphor for any community and really for the world community. So I'd like to share this with you. He says, "Indeed, the body does not consist of one member, but of many. If the foot would say, 'Because I'm not a hand, I do not belong to the body,' that would not make it any less a part of the body. And if the ear would say, 'Because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body,' that would not make it any less of a body." You see, he's saying that it looks like we're all different parts, but we're really part of one. And then he goes on to say, "If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. If one member is honored, all rejoice together with it." The truth is there is only one body, and there's only one of us. And we really got a taste of that this week, didn't we? With the circumstances of the tornado in Oklahoma. You know, if we allow ourselves to, we feel such deep compassion for those people. You know, we grieve with the parents who lost children. And we are inspired by that governor who stood there so stoically saying, "We are strong people. We've been through this before, and we'll survive this too." And we're touched deeply by those teachers who showed the bravery of literally laying on top of the children to protect them. And we're touched deeply when we see the individual stories, like the one of the elderly woman. I don't know if you saw this clip, but the elderly woman who's being interviewed by a reporter. And she survived okay, but her house is rubble, and her sadness is that her dog did not survive. You know, the pets were such a loss in this tornado, and it was just, hurting her heart, even though she had that Oklahoma stoicism in her, you could tell. And right in the middle of the interview, while they're talking, out of the rubble comes her dog. Right in that moment. And you see her, she's just so touched, and she reaches down, she's not strong enough to lift up her dog. You can tell she wants to. She can't even quite bend down to get all the way to him because of her condition, but you just feel the love. And then she says, "Now both of my prayers have been answered." She prayed for herself to survive and for her dog. And so as we watch and listen and hear and allow the compassion in our hearts to open us up, we realize that we are all one, and nothing happens to one that it doesn't happen to another, because there's only one of us. It's a funny thing how it is that we touch each other's lives, the people that we are closest with in this world. I've got two friends, and one of them was the first person I ever hired over 31 years ago. And we went on to become co-workers, and then just very good soul friends, just friends of the soul. And about 14 years ago, he met and married his life partner. And the two of them today, Rich and Patrick, are very dear friends of mine. But here's the interesting thing. When I call their house, and one of them answers the phone, I have to say, who is it? I can't distinguish their voices. Now, it wasn't that way in the beginning, but after 14 years of married life together, after 14 years, their voices are indistinguishable. And I know them pretty well. That's just how it is that we leave these fingerprints, if you will, on one another's hearts and souls, how it is that we grow together in this life experience. And so Memorial Day, it really gives you an opportunity to reflect on the people that have left a mark on you. Now, I know that a lot of us think that, well, it's really the holiday to go shop at Macy's. And, that's a good thing to do. There's a good sale going on at Macy's, and Bob was telling me there's a good one going on at Nordstrom's too. But I'm going to say in between the sales and whatever else you might have planned, I want to invite you to do some reflection on the people that have left their fingerprints on your soul. And if there are some of those people who are still alive, I invite you to go tell them what a difference they've made. So often as a minister, when I'm officiating a celebration of life service and I hear a beautiful tribute, and I find myself wondering, did that person have the opportunity to tell their loved one while they were alive what they meant? And sometimes we don't have that opportunity, but if you've got folks that you know that you're thinking of right now who are touching your life right now today, then tell them. Use this as an excuse to reach out and tell them. Of course, the other thing that I invite you to reflect about is how it is that you are leaving a legacy in the world, how it is that you are leaving fingerprints upon the world. What will people say when you have one day left this physical body? Because what we're talking about here is legacy. We're talking about legacy, and Shannon Alder once said, "Carve your name on hearts, not tombstones." A legacy is etched into the minds of others and the stories that they share about you. I'm thinking about Brandon Nagel's grandmother. Did any of you here know her? She came to church here. Anybody know her? Her name was Miriam Rhodes. I didn't know her either. But I think about how it is that she introduced Brandon to Unity, and how Brandon is today our director of youth and family. So he is the one that is teaching our kids, your grandkids, about a loving God and about how it is that they have a choice as to what thoughts that they think and how those thoughts make a difference in their lives. And Brandon is the one that's teaching them about having hope, and that God is a positive God, and that they make a difference in the world. Brandon is the one teaching them those things. So his grandmother, Miriam, who has never met your kids or your grandkids, his grandmother has left fingerprints upon their soul too. And they will share that message. You see, that's how it is in this world. So who are you thinking about today? Who are you thinking about who's made a difference in your life? Though they may not be on the physical plane anymore. When Bob led that beautiful meditation, was there a name of a parent or a grandparent? Think for just a moment, if you will. Just reach into your heart and allow to come into this space the name of one or more people who have moved on from the physical body, and yet their spirit is still here with you. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe a sister or a brother. Possibly even a child. Take a moment to thank them for the gift that they have been to you, for the fingerprints that they have left on your heart and your soul. you are ready and you have someone in your mind and heart, I invite you to open your eyes for a moment. You know, it's a tradition in some churches to light a candle on behalf of our loved ones who've moved on. Sometimes you make an offering and they'll light a perpetual candle on behalf of your loved one. So we're going to do that today on behalf of those who have left their fingerprints on your soul. And we have one candle here because there's only one of us. And your loved ones who have blessed you have blessed us. And so as I light this candle, it's a candle of gratitude. It's a candle of gratitude for the difference that these people have made in your life and in my life. And it's a way of saying that we are always connected, that we are never apart. You know, it looks like we're separate, but we're not. There's only one of us. I'm telling you, there's only one of us. And your loved ones are never far away, even if you cannot see them with your human eyes. And so we light this candle today on behalf of all those who have loved you, who stand behind you and beside you, who bless you as angels. And we say thank you as we light this candle in honor of them.